Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Journeys to Belonging. On today's episode, I have a guest with me who is, we have a meeting of the minds, I would say. We have a lot in common. And I've been following Naomi Toland since last year when I connected with her on social media. And like I said, just found so many connections with her. We've been keeping in touch ever since. Then she started the Empathetic Educators chat on Twitter. So I try to make that as much as I can. And the rest is history. So welcome, Naomi. I'm so excited that you made time for me because I know how busy you are.
Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, it's been a journey this year for both of us, and being part of each other's journeys and seeing that. So I'm really, really grateful for you asking me to come on your show. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. You're all doing all the great things in the community with teachers and students, and everybody should know about what you're up to and how they can get involved with all the things that you're doing. So I didn't really say anything at all about where you are, what you're doing, where you're from. So go ahead and tell our listeners.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I'm originally from Derry in Ireland, but I haven't lived at home for the past 10 years. It's actually my 10th year away from home, which is quite scary how quick everything goes. But yeah, so I've worked and did my teaching degree in Northumbria in Newcastle, and then I moved down to London and I taught in Hackney for 3 years, and that was a crazy place to do your first year of teaching, but a lot of learning, a lot of growth in those first 3 years. And then myself and my partner, we went traveling for 3 months around South America. And that was just, some gorgeous experiences in that space. Just travel's a big part of like my kind of, my growing up and me doing what I'm doing. And then that brought us over to New Zealand. We taught for just shy of 3 years in New Zealand in Auckland then. And that, like, going from London where it was a certain way in the curriculum and the way that we taught, and then moving over to New Zealand and experiencing that, it was just, so great to be able to experience two different types of systems. And then just when COVID hit, myself and my partner had already decided to take the leap and move over to Japan last year. So we moved to Japan in August of last year. Well, I moved, and because of COVID, we didn't know when Rob was going to be moving. So I moved by myself to a country I didn't know anyone, didn't know
my goodness.
the language,
a new language,
and during COVID as well, so we didn't know what was happening in the world. So that was a big challenge. But yeah, so it's been a crazy past 10 years, but really great learning from all those experiences too.
Yeah, awesome. And what do you do? Are you teaching? Are you in what level?
And so I've trained, my training was early primary, so early years, and I taught in year 1 and 2 for my first 3 years. Then I wanted to kind of challenge myself to go up because I wanted to see what the learning journey was like in across the schools. So I wanted to go up the school. So I was teaching in actually an innovative learning environment. So like where it's you've got 80 learners in a big space, and there's 3 teachers who teach in that space. And I was teaching in year 4, 5, and 6. So we had multi-age. And that was a big learning curve for me. And I think that's one of my passions is in education, is seeing what does that place bring to the kids' experience, what does another place bring to the kids' experience.
Oh, interesting.
In my teaching in London, it was in like a single cell, and it was very it was London and England, we know their curriculum are very prescribed, and that was very different to what I was experiencing in New Zealand. And then I'm currently, I've just finished the year teaching year 3 in an international school, so the IB curriculum we've been teaching here as well. So yeah, I've had different pockets and different experiences and different types of things. So yeah, it's quite cool.
Yeah, you're quite the adventurer. It's great. Yeah, everybody should have that opportunity, I think, if they want it. Of course, not everybody wants to travel. So the first question I always ask my guests, Naomi, is if I say the word belonging or feeling a sense of belonging, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I think connection. I think for me, in my first year of teaching, I tell this like kind of story a lot. That's where Empathetic Educators came from. That's where my passions come from, because my first year of teaching for me, I kind of isolated myself because I kind of was like looking at people and they for a person who loves connection, I kind of thought, I'm not dealing with this okay. I'm not doing things right in my first year teaching. I'm not like, I just felt I really, really had a downward spiral in my first year. And it kind of made me realize the importance of belonging and connection, because I was pulling myself away. And actually that was making me more isolated and more alone. But I
Right.
realized then that the power of actually reaching out to people and connecting to people and just letting people know where you're at and what you're feeling. And I think that transfers then into the learners as well, because a lot of the learners who I was working with, it was like an inner city London school where there was a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different things going on for the learners, and some of the things that they experienced, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, never mind like anything of those learners. So I think for me, belonging in that space, trying to allow those learners to feel that connection, feel that space that they could come to and be safe and be heard and be valued. And I think all those aspects as adults or as children, those feed into that belonging piece, because you feel like you're okay to be here and it's safe and it's it's good. So so I think that's where I think that's, like you say, we're very, that what we're working on, that's where we connected, was that belonging piece and that empathy, and they all very much tie together, which is why I'm advocating for empathy, because it very much ties to that belonging space. So
Did you find, that's really interesting, did you find that as you found your sense of belonging, you were able to relate that in your classroom? Was it sort of simultaneous? Did one come first and the other came after, or?
I think it taught me the importance of it in the classroom. So me in a system or in a space or in like an environment, I think for me, feeling that myself and really understanding it and going through it, it made me then realize, okay, how am I making my learners not feel that way? How am I making sure that my colleagues aren't feeling that way? How am I making sure I'm creating spaces, no matter who I'm working with, inside school or outside school, that it really, because I am an empath. I think I never heard of the word empath until I came across like this first year teaching, and people were saying like, you really feel the feels of people. And I was talking to George Couros about this, and I was saying like, empathy, but not at the expense of yourself. So I was feeling their feelings. I was going through what they were going through, and it was just wearing everything on my like, wearing my heart in my sleeve, basically. And that wasn't helping me, because I was feeling their feelings, but I wasn't actually supporting them as much as I could if I was kind of like attaching myself and making sure that they were okay, but also I was okay. And so it just like you said, like that really did make me understand the importance of bringing that into my classroom, but also bringing it into myself and finding that space.
That's sort of like that secondary trauma that they talk about, where you sort of pack it on because we're the caring service people, right? But then we forget about ourselves, which isn't very good. So
and I think it goes back to like how are we setting up systems. That's why I'm so passionate about like the adult learning, and how we create spaces for the adults who are then going, and like we've seen this year how much we've had to adapt and change, and so much of that we're helping learners navigate an unknown world, and we're helping parents, and we're supporting them and all those different fields, but who's supporting the teachers? And I think that's what I'm really passionate about, is how are we creating spaces and as leadership, making sure teachers are feeling supported and aware and just moving forward in that space is really important too.
And just thinking about each other, where are we at, and checking in with each other, I think is really important. Sometimes we get so focused on the students in our classroom, it's very difficult for us to sort of pull ourselves out and see everything else around us. So you've had quite a journey. You talked a little bit about it at the beginning, about where you've been and places you've been to, but I'd love for you to share with our listeners how you started teaching internationally, and sort of what you've learned along the way, and what moved you from place to place, maybe, because I think that's a really, really interesting journey.
I think that's it. It's a really exciting journey. It's a really scary journey. It's a really like all those different feelings in between. And I think that's what I think some people look at it and say, oh, I could never do that. Or like we said before, some people just don't want to move away, and that they're like happy where they are. But some people actually don't want to because they're scared to take that first step. And I think whenever me and my partner were in our first year, second year of teaching, I was kind of always wanting to go and travel. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I think I want to go and experience things and I want to go and share it. And I think that's what along my journey along the way has taught me is like every step is a bit scary. Like, so me and my partner moving back to New Zealand, and even though we've already been there, now we're packing up our houses, now we're getting rid of all of our things, now we're closing the door on this chapter, and it is a bit, I'm getting those feelings of like nervousness and excitement and unknown, and like the unknown part is what creates this like the scariness.
Are you going back to Auckland or somewhere else in New Zealand?
Going back to Auckland, yeah. So we're going back, and I think we've got some new opportunities. We've got some old opportunities that we're going back to as well. And I think that's the part that I'm really excited about is like the unknown and like pushing ourselves a little bit, but also like that's what we're trying to teach our learners about, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and trying to go into an unknown future. And I think that's what is really again connected me to the learner's experience is the more I'm putting myself in those little spaces, the more I'm saying, okay, that's what the learners feel whenever I'm asking them to stand up in front of people and they don't know what they're doing. Whenever I'm asking them to take that step, there is you're juggling a lot of feelings in that space. And then go back to empathy, me moving around different places and actually walking in the shoes, like in Japan, how do people live their life in Japan? What do they do? What are their experiences? And really trying to be open towards that. That's kind of what, I've learned the most from my journey of being away is, how people see the world and how people, go through their little perspectives.
Yeah. Have you always been someone who liked the challenge, who sort of liked or were thrilled and excited about jumping into something new?
I think I have. I think it's really weird because in my first year of teaching, I did my whole life kind of changed in that first year of teaching. I became more closed and more needing safety and more needing to feel okay. So I probably wasn't challenging myself as much as what I had been before. Right. And I think that's what's been interesting is since my first year of teaching, I've almost been trying to not go back to that person, but I've been trying to like understand what made me go in more insular whenever I was feeling nervous or scared or in my first year. Yeah. But I have always, so me and my family, we used to have like we had travel holidays. So we used to go in the caravan in Ireland and travel all around Ireland. I used to have freedom of like going away for the day and trying to go and make friends. And I think that's where my interest in people came from, is like I could go away in the morning and then not come back until dinner time and bring my friends back, and Naomi would have like the dinner ready and be open to people coming back with me. And I think that's where I've kind of found my freedom and my challenge and kind of my curiosity of people is like from that space. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Last year you started Empathetic Educators, which I sort of mentioned at the, I don't know whether it's actually you started it, but the Twitter chat was started last year. So I love to, because you alluded to the fact a little while ago that sort of you've been on this journey looking into empathy and looking into multicultural and intercultural. So can you share about all of that? And you also mentioned in the information you sent to me about the connection with your interests in neuroscience and design, relationships, psychology. So I know that sort of sounds like a really big area, but I'd love for you to just explore that a little bit. How did that all come together with the whole empathetic educators piece? And when did that idea start?
So I think like going back to my first year of teaching, it was a very pivotal moment in my whole life. Because I think for me, I kind of being one of those learners who kind of was like achieving really high success, like and really doing well and working through school and getting all the grades and ticking all those boxes in life. And I think when I came to my first year of teaching, I kind of had a really big decline because I was like, oh, what's the answer? What's the tick? What's the yes?
Interesting.
And so that life skills of being prepared and being okay with the failure and really embracing failure was something I wasn't okay with in my first year of teaching. But it also taught me like the empathy piece of like neuroscience. So that's where I started getting interested in neuroscience in my first year of teaching. So it was about 7-8 years ago. I started getting interested in it. So I, like you say, I only started Empathetic Educators, the chat last year, but Empathetic Educators has been going on kind of since my first year of teaching, really, like researching it and understanding it. Because I think for me, neuroscience I was so curious. So I started getting migraines in my first year. Like I was getting them probably every week.
Oh
And
dear.
and I was going to the doctor, and they said, you're just not breathing. That's your problem. Like they didn't tell me kind of like why, or they didn't try and unpack
Mhm.
it. They didn't try and understand. They just said you have to breathe more. And then I had to leave. I was like, that's not a solution for
I'm afraid of hyperventilating though. That's not a good thing. Yeah, no, that's not a good solution.
So yeah, so that kind of like, but it also showed me like the importance of so that she was right, like the person was right, because I wasn't
Hmm.
breathing. So I was in a constant state of like worry on not
Oh,
after
okay.
myself. And so that was then leading to like obviously not oxygen, then leading to like my
Hmm.
migraines. I was getting every week. I'd never experienced migraines before, but I was
Interesting.
getting them,
Oh my
and that was
gosh.
like the stress part of it. And so that's what made me more interested in neuroscience, is because I was like,
Mhm.
what's going on with me? Like, why my body wasn't like this
Ah.
before? Why am I acting like this? What's going on for me? And then the more, like you say, the more I learned about myself and my
Hmm.
brain and my body, then I could transfer that into the learners and say, oh, okay, so this person's reacting this way. There's something going on. I think both of us have shared, I've seen you share the visual as well, like behavior is communication, and that belonging piece is like,
Hmm.
it's like what the behavior that our learners are experiencing and they're exhibiting,
Right.
what's going on for them, what are they trying to communicate to us through the
Hmm.
behavior that they're experiencing. They're not just
Sure.
reacting, maybe they're getting misunderstood, maybe they're not understanding what's going on, maybe they're not feeling heard, or maybe there's something going on at home that we have to try and understand in that space too. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why the neuroscience part is such a big, I haven't got any like degree or anything. That's just been
Hmm.
just sheer reading all the books that I'm trying to do and talk to the people and empathetic educators, is
Yes.
trying to share that. I think like going back to what is empathetic educators, so the podcast and the YouTube channel, I started asking people
Hmm.
these questions of what is going on with my brain? Why am I acting like this? What is going on with me? And the
Interesting.
more I asked the people, the more I was like, this could be something, this is useful. This can go beyond just, it's helping me with
Hmm.
my practice. How can I
Right.
help other people's practice, and how can I maybe share this knowledge that I'm doing and
Right.
understanding and put it into like a piece. So I've been on probably 2 years. I've been started the podcast, and it's just been, yeah, understanding it ever since. Same as you, just kind of like getting it out there, and then learning along the way as well. So yeah, it's
Right.
been
Yeah.
nice.
It's amazing how much we learn from our
Mm,
guests. I'm always fascinated by the number of things that I pick up, because I do read a lot, the same as you.
mm,
But there's still so many, and the personal touch that everybody gives, like yourself,
mm,
to your own journey and your own discovery of not just belonging, but about yourself, which I think is
mm,
really, really important, because I sort of came late to the game in
mm,
terms of finding myself and finding out about myself. So
mm,
it's nice when you're much younger, because then you have more time to enjoy, hopefully enjoy, the fact that you are more confident because you know
mm,
yourself better. So what are some of the things that you do in your classroom
mm,
that really sort of um encourage students to be able to share? Because we've talked about this. I'm sure you brought it up also on your podcast or during the chat, about the fact that there are certain skills that we just assume people have,
mm.
including children and and students, but they don't have unless we point it out to them. So how do you help them now that you know that you struggled, because you had ticked all the boxes but you still
Mm.
struggled when you got to that first job?
I think you just actually made the connection that like that's exactly what so finding yourself, and then you end up having confidence in yourself, and you can actually enjoy yourself, like you can actually enjoy
Mm-hmm.
being you. And that's exactly what I want to spread the word of, is I'm so happy with being me now. Like I like back in those first couple of years I was just so like insecure, and I was behaving in a way that probably didn't seem insecure. I was probably acting like, oh, she's fine, she's okay, she's
Mm-hmm.
smiling, she's all good. But actually in my own head I was my worst enemy. Like I was just berating
Mm.
myself constantly, just like, you're no good, you're not this, you're not that, you can't do this, you look at that
Yeah.
person doing this, look at that person doing that. And the negative talk is still there, but it's a lot, I'm able to silence it a lot quicker, or I'm able to say, oh, what is that actually? Am I not good at that? Do I need to practice that more? Do I need to learn more in that space? And instead of believing
Yes.
it, I'm like understanding it more, and that I'm able to be kinder to my own head. And that's
Right.
exactly what I want to transfer to the learners. So like you say, then they'll have more confidence, then they'll be able to be happier being them. So I think for me, this last year, I've been in a class that was 100% EAL. So some of them obviously or bilingual. So we had different learners that spoke Japanese, Korean, like all different learners. And that for me, I was like, this is so cool to be able to have all those different learners in all those different spaces. But a lot of their obstacles were they were scared to speak because English wasn't their first language, and we were trying to all communicate in English. And so my biggest goal for that was confidence. Like myself and my TA, I said we need to make sure they're confident before they're going to want to be able to be in the group with each other and share those ideas. So we started doing just weekly presentations, and it sounds so simple, but I was mesmerized by how much growth we got just from, so every day we would have, when they came in, normally they would come in and read a book or whatever, but whenever I started want to focus on this, we had every day they'd come and they'd have like a little speech. So we were doing phonics with each other. And then the speech were based kind of on the phonics or based around the topic that we were looking at. And then, so at the very start, the learners would come in and they would kind of just paper, head down behind the paper, and they didn't want to talk, and you couldn't really hear them. And there was a couple of learners who maybe might be a little bit more confident, so we could kind of like work with that and see what they were bringing. But the shift between, I think I started this probably halfway through the year. So from halfway through the year until the very last week, we were doing presentations every single week. And the confidence I seen the learners grow from, and the way they seen each other. So the learners at the very start we had one learner who wouldn't speak. Like they even though they had the paper in front of them, they got very, very nervous. And of course they weren't feeling safe, and they wanted to create that space that they were understanding it. But by the end of the year, in our very last week, one of our learners who wasn't doing that, he stood up and he presented in front of the whole class, and everyone was just like, yes, like they were so proud. He was proud, and they were proud. And that was just like those moments as teachers. I know those little aha moments, those little spaces, but the sometimes I think we can look at these like new ways and different ways and innovative ways and like try and do all those things, but it's how can we make the innovation transfer into like the traditional things of presentations and how we know that that's a really important thing. So we use like the seesaw to be able to record each day. The learners were recording each day, recording themselves, and they would listen back and they'd be able to say, oh, that was good, that wasn't good. They could hear themselves and actually recognize what they were doing. They would go and they would share it with someone else. So they'd already practiced it, they'd already listened back to themselves, they'd already done the pre-work before they had to go and share with someone else. And so I think that's a really important part of confidence, is having a little bit of tiny steps of success, tiny little spaces where they can feel success and then come prepared to go to the next level. So that's kind of why I've seen this year, is that confidence piece is really cool.
Yeah, that scaffolding, or that slow, gradually, like those tiny steps, like you said, which sometimes appears really, really slow, especially when you've got all this content and everything like that. But actually, once they have that confidence, they'll pick up that content really quickly anyway. And so being able to sort of be patient and slowly getting them to get to that point was really important for them, because then they were ready for it. They didn't feel like you were pushing them.
And I think going back to like the neuroscience side of it, I was talking to someone called Nathan Wallace, and it really, really it blew my mind that in our brains, that if we are feeling scared or we are feeling like nervous, or where we're trying to like just worry, then we can't actually access the prefrontal cortex, like the thinking part of our head, because you're either in the survival brain. It's almost he puts up balance of two different things, and you're either in your survival brain or you're in your thinking brain. And so if the learners are feeling nervous, or they're feeling worried, or they're feeling like they can't do it, then that's them not feeling safe, and they're in that survival brain. So then if we're trying to say to them, write what you need to write, get this done, get this done, get this done, then they're not going to produce the best they can if they're not in that space of feeling.
No, they're going to start doing school because the teacher told them to do this.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it for me, is like that space where the more I can get them feeling heard and understood and feeling confident in themselves, I've seen big transformations in the classroom with their academics and the writing and the reading and the maths and all those different things too. So yeah, you're right,
Naomi. It's so important to understand how the brain learns, but also how the emotions go with it, that it's a whole package. I remember within the last year or so, starting to learn about the polyvagal theory, which is Dr. Stephen Porges. And it reminded me, because you were talking about the fight or flight and all of that, that, we have this vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve in the body, and it connects to all the major organs. And if you read about it, I have a bit about it in my book, but also if you look at Mandy Freilich's books, she has a chapter, I think in The Fire Within, I'm not sure if that's a chapter or not. And the person who contributed the chapter talks about the polyvagal theory. But anyway, look it up, because I know how interested you are in neuroscience, and that will put a lot more pieces together for you. And really, all teachers should be learning, mostly it's therapists who learn polyvagal theory, but really teachers should learn polyvagal theory and neuroscience. In fact, I remember when I was doing my doctorate, I thought, if I was only like 20, 25 years younger, I would have loved to. They started combining education and neuroscience. I forget what they were calling it. I don't think it was neuroeducation. But anyway, that to me fascinates it.
Yeah, educational neuroscience. That's scientists. So that's the person, Nathan Wallace, he's from New Zealand, and that's exactly what he does. He's gone from being a teacher to then learning about neuroscience. He's an educational neuroscience and that scientist, and that's exactly why I created Empathetic Educators, is because we wear so many hats, and like there's things that like psychologists know, and neuroscientists know, and education people know, and teachers know, and we have all these amazing people doing all this work in all different spheres. And that's what I'm trying to do in Empathetic Educators, is like, so it's all about getting nerdy. Like that's what the tagline, from like the Empathetic Educators says, getting nerdy.
I love it.
So neuroscience, like a nerdy is neuroscience, empathy, relationships, design, and psychology. And those are the 5 kind of areas that I've been looking into, because that's why I feel like for education, it helps with like, so getting designers to talk about what they do, getting neuroscience to talk about what they do, and what we can learn from that to bring into teaching. Because you're right, it's like, as teachers, that's going to help us have so many more tools in our toolkit to then bring into the classroom to understand the kids then with that space too. So
yeah, and we need that, especially after this pandemic year, and who knows what's going to happen. But now, you tweaked my interest. So you started and put together Empathetic Educators, and the podcast and the Twitter chat, and all these people who have these, it seems like different interests or different specialties, but really. And now, this coming week, actually, the episode will play after it, but I may play portions of this because I want to pique everybody's interest. Tell us about Empathetic Educators, or EE Conquest. How did that get going?
Yeah, so I'm so excited to have you on the show about your neuroscience. You need maybe bring on the polyvagal theory. That's great, because your show is all about neuroscience.
I will.
Yeah, I think for me, I had these couple of weeks in between moving to New Zealand and leaving Japan, and I was like, what do I want to, how can I make those 3 weeks matter, and what do I want to have going into that? And I think for me, I was like, how cool would it be if we could try and bring people from all across the world and just talk, just like have different sessions, have all these different themes of like neuroscience, design, all those different people come on. And I think for me, I'm really grateful, because I throughout the years of Empathetic Educators and throughout the travel and experience, I've met these amazing people, and I don't think my brain would have recovered or would have got to where I'm at right now. It's from my first year of teaching to now without the people around me. And it goes back to belonging, goes back to connection, goes back to all that, is all these amazing people around the world. I was like, maybe we could try and connect and then have a full 12-hour day of learning. So it's going to be going from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Japanese time on the 2nd of July. So that's kind of the 1st of July in America.
Yeah.
But it'll go across those time zones.
Oh my gosh,
And yeah.
yes.
So we have like you say, neuroscience. We've got topics like design thinking, innovation with Adam Hill and Fiona Morrison. We've got like all different things like Barbara Bray, one of our good connections, along with
Absolutely.
Stephanie
Yes.
Rothstein and Tracy Browder. They're coming on to talk about connections. It's the exact topic about belonging and connections in that space. And I think that's what I'm so excited about is I believe, going back to that teaching part of it, I really want empathetic educators to be part of the future of teacher development. That's what I really want to be part of is how can we help teachers? How can we, I've been in so many sessions or so many different places where I'm like, how are you helping me as a teacher? I need to go in tomorrow and be with learners. Like, is that really what I need to be part of right now? And I think there's we want teachers to be teaching in a different way, but I'm not too sure how much we're trying to set teachers up to be in that different way. And
I love that. Yes, you're exactly right, Naomi.
So I think like because we've come from schools that aren't what we're experiencing now. We've come from an education system that isn't what we can't. The way that I see it is I wouldn't expect my learners in my class for me to say to them, can you go write an essay about something about history, where I haven't given them any of the facts, any of the tools, any of the resources. I haven't given them anything. But we do that to teachers so many times. Oh, I want to do this. You have to do this in your classroom. You have to do this with your kids. And we haven't given them the tools in their toolkit. Even though we're adults, we still need to learn. And so yeah, so I think like that's what I want empathetic educators to be, and this EE Conquest Day to be, is a day of learning where we can have fun, where we can enjoy ourselves, we can come together and have different perspectives or different thoughts or different ideas, but how can we come together and learn together? That's what that's what I really, really am excited about is, yes, it's okay if you disagree with me. Yes, it's okay if I don't see that way. But how can we have those conversations to then grow together and see more together too? So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited because of all of the sessions. And will they be recorded so that people can catch them later?
So people now, if you go to bit.ly/EE Conquest 2021, you can register and you can sign up. And I know this is going out afterwards, but yeah, so like that's kind of where you can sign up with, but that will also be where you can sign up even afterwards and find out more about the sessions. So all the sessions will be in there, in the login part too for, that's where they'll be stored. So it'll all be on there even after the sessions too.
Awesome. And what's the fun part? Because that looks really interesting too.
So it is called EE Conquest. So I kind of and with my learners, we try and do like little missions and little challenges and little fun things to actually come together. And so I've created a map where all the sessions are on, so ticking off the different sessions. So you have like a little booklet, and that kind of has a breakdown of all the sessions, and there has some missions in there too, so you can create your own character, and so like you can bring that character to the table, and you can let us know what those traits that your character has and why those traits are. There's also like little other activities that you can fill in the booklet, and then once the missions are all ticked off, the week after we have some fun prizes, we have some fun giveaways to be taken part into. So everyone loves a good little prize, a good little fun element of it. So it's kind of like, how can we go starting off the day not going on the mission, and by the time we complete the mission, by the time we complete the adventure, what's changed, what have we learned together as a team and across the world? That's kind of what I'm hoping to bring.
That's awesome. Purpose is really, really important to belonging also, and also to our self-belonging. So I love the fact that it's not just come to the sessions, you're going to learn a lot. There's such an intention behind everything that you do, Naomi. I think it's wonderful. And it speaks to the fact that you understand that teachers, just like learners, need to be supported with their learning if we expect them to be design thinkers and to be able to think outside the box and just, be empathetic. Right? And understand themselves so that they can really be there for their learners.
Yeah,
I
no,
love it.
it's so true.
It's
So true.
fantastic.
And I think a big part of it that I haven't mentioned actually, which I need to do more of, is because it is a free event. It's a completely free event because I wanted to put together something that people can access and not everyone can come to it.
Nice.
But there is a part of it that we're donating money to Youthline in New Zealand, because it goes back to belonging again. I was working as volunteering as a phone counselor whenever I was back in New Zealand, because Youthline's all about trying to get the youth of today mentally healthy. And if you're feeling stressed, if you're worried, then, and it goes back to the reason why I liked being a youth counselor in that space was I didn't know where to turn to in my first year of teaching. I didn't know who to turn to or where to go, and able to, that phone call, just ringing up, and if it was anonymous or if you told the person who you were able to just be heard and try to make the person feel understood. And they're doing amazing work in New Zealand, trying to promote that. So I think it goes back to belonging again. I thought I didn't want it to be there would be a cost for it, but if anyone can donate, no matter what it is, that'll be part of the registration part as well. You can just find the link there if you wanted to donate some things afterwards.
Awesome.
It'll be open, because I think that's how we can try and help the world too, is helping people who are struggling.
Absolutely, becoming that good ancestor, which is where we all should be headed. Yeah. So Naomi, this has been absolutely terrific. I've again learned so much from another one of my guests. Is there anything else that you wanted to tell our listeners about, or anything that I missed asking you that you wanted to talk about before we finish up?
No, I think I'm just really grateful, Eileen, for you to be asking me to come on, and I really have enjoyed our collaboration this past year, obviously, and like especially with the year that it's been, that belonging piece has been so important. And I think that's what I would say, not really for me to tell anything, but just if anyone is out there struggling or not too sure where to go, or not sure where to turn to, or just reaching out and just like finding people and finding like-minded people, but also just like seeing. So my journey on Twitter has been, I started to watch what people are doing. I started to kind of like
I was a lurker also at the beginning.
Lurking for a long time, and even through lurking, you're seeing different perspectives. You're seeing people, that person's struggling through, that person's going through it. Like lurking is okay, and then like taking a little action, and like I'm reaching out to people, and the more, this year has been so much more than what it could have been for me, because I have had people to reach out to and taken that. Sometimes in my first year, I was kind of like, I can't talk to anyone, not going to do anything, and almost expecting people to come to me. But how are they going to know what I'm going through unless I let them in? So yeah, I think if people are out there, we're here and we're wanting to have a chat, and we're here to be able to listen to. So yeah.
Right. And so where can they find you if they're looking for you after listening to this podcast episode?
Yeah, so like we said, we met on Twitter. So I am at Naomi_Toland on Twitter. You can find out all about Empathetic Educators through the hashtag Empathetic_Educators. And the conquest, even though this might be going out afterwards, you'll still be able to find out all the resources and all the past recordings at hashtag Conquest as well. So, and I'm at Naomi.m.t on Instagram too, and I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah, you can find me if you type me in.
Wonderful. And of course, I'll include all of that in the show notes. And hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to get some of this out this week before July 1st, so that people know about it and can hear from the source exactly what it's going to be like. Because it's nice to see the graphics and all of that and read the posts. But when the person who puts it all together is talking about it, it makes a big difference. So I'm going to see how I can try to make that happen. Naomi, this was absolutely terrific. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, audience. And yeah, thank you so much.